What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast by pennstate.rivals.com. I am psurivals.com publisher, Richie Schnyderite. As always, I'm joined by our beat writer, senior writer, whatever you want to call him, Mr. Do-It-All, Dylan Callaghan-Croley. Dylan, breaking news today. Penn State has a new basketball coach in Mike Rhoades, former Virginia Commonwealth head coach. Give me your overall thoughts on him. I know it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's surely not the sexy hire that some other names would have been made down at Florida State, for example. But I think it's a very good hire and one that's going to be able to stabilize the program. He's going to bring a good floor to Penn State's basketball program long term, I think. The ceiling, you could argue, is it going to ever be Big Ten championship potential on a consistent basis, at least? Probably not, but I don't think that should be the ultimate goal right now for Penn State. I think the ultimate goal for Penn State right now should be building a consistent winning program that can get to the NCAA tournament year in and year out. And well, I'm not sure that Rhoades will get to that. I think he's going to be able to get the program to a place where they are going into the tournament 2 out of 3 years or 2 out of every 4 years.
Yeah, it seems like obviously, number one, he's a Pennsylvania native, born and raised in Mahanoy Township or Mahanoy City. I'm sorry. Yes. Played at Lebanon Valley.
Won a D3 championship with Lebanon Valley as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure people hear the name Rhoades, and if you're into politics and all that, his dad was a senator for the state of Pennsylvania for quite some time. But yeah, no, I mean, he seems like a decent coach. He's gotten pretty far into Division III when he was in his first job at Randolph-Macon. He got them to the Sweet 16 multiple times, got them to D3 tournament multiple times. Went over to Rice, and Rice is like an unwinnable program. I don't think you can win there, and he did that. Exactly. So
he absolutely did.
23-12 at Rice is impressive. And then VCU hires him right after Shaka Smart. So I mean, he's got him to the tournament 3 times. Most recently, this past year, 27-8. I don't think anyone here would complain if Penn State was 27-8 ever in basketball. So it's definitely been an interesting ride for him. He's 129-61 at VCU all time. So we'll kind of see.
Appearances.
Yeah, 3 tournament appearances, an NIT second round appearance. Seems like he's been in the top half of that A-10 conference nonstop. Now the Big Ten's not the A-10; it's completely different. So,
yeah, and one could argue VCU is the top school basketball-wise in the A-10 over the last decade.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, let me ask you this. What are kind of expectations, I guess, for year one? I know it's going to be difficult because this is a tournament team that's got 4. I'm going to say 4 because I don't think Braden Shrewsbury sticks.
Yeah, exactly. I think I wouldn't be shocked if he already put in his paperwork per se to be released from his LOI. But yeah, as of right now, technically 5, but let's be honest here. Braden Shrewsbury is going to follow his dad to Notre Dame. I think in Notre Dame's opening video Notre Dame posted about Shrewsbury a couple days ago, Braden was in that video. So I think it's only a matter of time until he is officially out of this recruiting class. But yeah, down to 4 scholarship players. Nobody in the 2023 recruiting class, though. Logan Imes is still considering Penn State in his recruitment. He just wanted to open it back up now that there's been a coaching change, and that I'm sure will be a priority for Rhoades here in his first days as Penn State's head coach. It's going to come down to transfer portal and how well he can hit that. He's had success in the transfer portal while at VCU. He's picked up names like Zeb Jackson and Brandon Johns. Both of them were actually formerly at Michigan. Johns led the Rams, or one of the top players for the Rams this past season. 11.6 points, 5 2-point rebounds, and 0.7 assists per game. Jackson had a little bit of a smaller role, but he has also brought in quite a few other notable guys over his tenure down in, I think, Richmond is where VCU is. Via the transfer portal. So he's had success there, and I think he's going to be able to have success again through the transfer portal with Penn State. But it's going to limit his, abilities here in year one. I think expectations should be, when you have to replace over half your roster, 75% of your roster, It's quite hard. You are muted, by the way. If you wanted
I
to,
did not. I did not know I was muted, so that is my mistake. But yeah, like I just said, oh geez, when you said like 75%, it is crazy to see that there's only 4 scholarship players technically.
yeah.
Um,
So it's going to temper expectations. So I'd say maybe a winning record in year one would be a good feat, and then anything after that, you're looking to get into the NCAA tournament. But when you have to rebuild a foundation like this, it's tough because not only do they lose countless guys to the transfer portal and requests and releases from letter of intents. They
mhm.
also lost, Jalen Pickett, Seth Lundy, Andrew Funk, Cameron Winter, and Miles Dredd, all to eligibility.
Yeah, that's basically your entire scoring right there.
It's your top five scores from this year.
Yeah, and there's honestly no guarantee that these 4 guys in Kanye Clary, Jameel Brown, Keba Ng,
No,
and Demetrius Lowy even stay. The good thing
no,
is that playing time is available. It's the Big Ten Conference. It's one of the
yeah,
I don't know where I'd rank it right now. That's a weird discussion for another time. But
yeah,
it is one of the premier conferences, and it's one of the only conferences where a big man actually gets to get the ball quite a bit. So if you could
yeah,
find the transfer portal big, I
exactly.
mean, you could find someone that could legitimately want to come in and just play significant minutes right away. So there's that.
Yeah, and he does have some interesting names on his VCU roster that could make sense for potentially coming to Penn State.
I know. I'm just looking through it now. Obviously, their leading scorers: Ace Baldwin, um,
Yep.
Baltimore, Maryland, St. Francis Kid. We all know the stigma between
A,
St. Francis and Penn State. Maybe that's just football, though. Maybe they'll get
yeah,
lucky in hoops.
uh, A10 player of the year this year as well.
Yeah, so I mean that's a big one. I know. I'm just looking through most of the roster, and they're recruiting some of the biggest programs possible too. Like, for example, Jaden Nunn, Dream City Christian Prep School down in Arizona, has 4-star after 4-star after 4-star after 4-star. Montverde Academy,
Yep.
4-star, 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 5-star. They're like number one every year almost.
Yep.
The Skill Factory in Georgia, like these are not like these kids are coming from no name programs. These are all big name programs, and
Agreed.
a lot of them I've noticed are kind of from the Northeast. So it'd be interesting to see what if Penn State can, or not Penn State, if some of these guys enter the portal and they end up at Penn State. So it's going to be interesting to
Yep.
see what happens.
Yeah, he's not afraid to go out and swing big. That's for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
one could argue, how does VCU and Penn State compare? Obviously, VCU is a mid-major program, but they're one of the more consistent mid-major programs over the last decade. Penn State has only been to the tournament 3 times since 2000. Rhoades has led VCU there 3 times in the last 6 years, and not even counting what Shaka Smart did for that program either.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see what type of success he has at Penn State. I think there is the ability to have success, but it's going to continue for Penn State to the Penn State administration to have buy-in with the basketball program, and they paid Rhoades a pretty penny. John Rothstein reported that the contract reported on Tuesday that the contract is going to be in excess of $3 million, which isn't by the highest in the Big Ten, but it's a noteworthy salary for a school that hasn't really put a ton of money towards basketball in the past. I'll be interested to see what type of money he gives. Pat Kraft gives him for assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps he just brings a lot of his VCU staff with him. But if perhaps he has a little money to play with, he goes out and goes after a bigger name assistant, perhaps.
I like the segue there. So we're going to start talking about assistant coaches now. Obviously, number one, I think people are going to try to get Adam Fisher. You got to keep him on board.
Yeah. That'd be a big one.
Great recruiter, and he was the main recruiter for Kerry Booth. Like, if you can get Kerry Booth back, all of a sudden everyone's like, "Whoa, we could do this again. Let's just rebuild."
And Logan Imes as well.
Yeah.
Everything with Fisher worth noting that I still believe as of today he is still a finalist for the Temple job, which we'll see if he gets that job. And then if he doesn't get the Temple job and Rhoades is recruiting him to stay on, is he going to pick Penn State, his alma mater? Is he going to follow Shrewsbury to Notre Dame? There's been a lot of rumblings about him following Shrewsbury to South Bend, but obviously Fisher's been focused on that Temple job. But I'm sure soon after that Temple job is filled, either way, if it's him or not, will have a pretty quick understanding of where Fisher's future lies.
Yeah, of course. Another interesting update is that Adam Fisher's Twitter account did just follow about 5 to 6 Notre Dame basketball Twitter accounts for
And that gives you a
recruiting
little
or
bit of
this, that. And it's like, oh, kind of interesting to see what happens there. But it does sound like Temple is number one on his priority list. Obviously, it's a head coaching gig. It's his first ever if he gets it.
yep.
It sounds like he's trending that way too. So, but like I'm looking at the VCU assistant coaching staff currently, and he's got some good names on there. And these guys have been with him for as long as could be. Jamal Blunt's the associate head coach. Just a quick background on him. He spent time in Miami where he was there. Actually, he's considered a defensive coordinator right now for VCU. At Miami for a couple, where he was there for 4 seasons. He's considered, or 3 seasons. He's considered the offensive coordinator at Miami. So he knows the game of basketball. Obviously, he's helped Miami get a 1,300 point scorer in Davon Reed, who's from New Jersey. He's helped them recruit Miami's highest ranked recruiting classes ever in program history, back to back, featuring guys like Lonnie Walker, who's with the Spurs, Bruce Brown, who was with the Nets. I don't even know where he's at now. DeJuan Huell, like there's a bunch of big name guys, all ACC, third team, all ACC, second team, like, and he's a DMV guy. He's a Baltimore native, so that kind of leads back to that St. Francis thing I was talking about before with Baldwin. So maybe you just put him on staff right away, give him the associate head coaching title, and maybe Baldwin just follows.
Yeah, that would be a really nice hire for Penn State as an assistant head coach. Now, one has to wonder how much of a look VCU will give him as potentially the next head coach. I know there's rumors out there. I think Jeff Goodman reported earlier today that Utah State's Ryan Odom would be the front runner for the VCU job. But maybe Brunt gets a little bit of a look. But if Brunt comes to Penn State, that would be a fantastic hire just from that recruiting background as well. For Penn State to have success, they're going to have to recruit at a high level. And VCU, for being a mid-major and not the biggest of mid-majors, recruited really well during Rhoades' time down there. And Brunt was, I think, a nice, crucial part of that, including grabbing a 4-star prospect out of Pocono Mountain West back in 2022, Christian Furman, a 4-star Rivals 150 prospect, came in 121 nationally in those rankings. So this is a guy who definitely recruited, and a coaching staff that definitely recruited, as we can see. And you're looking at him as a defensive coordinator for VCU. VCU over the last few years, when did he arrive at VCU? Let's see.
2017.
2017. So he's been there all the time.
And he's worked with him at Randolph-Macon as well back in the day in D3.
Yeah. And we were going to talk a little bit more about this later on, but just as we talk about Brunt as a defensive coordinator, since they took over at VCU, so the first season, the opponent's field goal percentage was 45% and ranked 241st in the nation. Since then, it's ranked 6th, 140th, 34th, 19th, and 50th in the nation. The highest field goal percentage allowed during that time period was 42.3%. The lowest was at, I believe, 38.7%. So this has been a team that's been a consistent defensive, nightmare for opposing teams. It's not, a fun, exciting type of basketball for most people, but they play a very strong defensive game that they just smother their opponents and eliminate any good shot opportunities. So I mean, the results are there that this system works.
Yeah, no, of course. I know you just mentioned Christian Furman. Now, interestingly enough, his recruitment came down to 5 schools, and it was VCU, St. Joe's, Temple, Penn State, and Pitt. What do 4 out of those 5 schools have in common? The state of Pennsylvania. So it wouldn't shock me if he ended up back in Pennsylvania. He clearly kind of favored it a little bit, but VCU was just tough to pass up. I know he was very close to Mike Farrelly, so that could be another name, I guess, to potentially keep an eye on.
Yeah, and he, obviously it's VCU, but he obviously also ended up with a Pennsylvania native in Mike Rhoades at VCU, which I'm sure part of Mike Rhoades' pitch at the time was, I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania as well. Come down, help us out here, and build something. And I think I think there's a good chance Furman probably enters the transfer portal and follows Rhoades to Penn State as well.
Yeah, and we'll have more on
not just speculation there, nothing
yeah,
official.
of course. We'll have more on that too. I'm going to post an article shortly, having potential guys who could enter the transfer portal from VCU that could end up at Penn State. I know it's just speculation on our part, but that's kind of where we're at right now because it's a whole lot of coaching movement.
Yeah, and this is possibly completely change it will completely change who Penn State's targeting already in the transfer portal. We already had a list of guys they've been targeting, but now that there's a whole new coaching staff in place, the interest in the style of player and type of player you recruit is going to obviously change. The Mike Rhoades system is very different from the Micah Shrewsbury system that we'll get into a little bit more. So, definitely going to see a change in recruiting philosophy too.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to do a reset on that transfer portal big board, just because, like you said, new staff, new philosophies, new ways of identifying prospects and stuff like that. Yep. But moving on to the next name that I got on this list, I also got J.D. Byers. He's the recruiting coordinator for VCU / assistant coach, Lebanon Valley grad, another Maryland native. He's actually one of 5 ever in Lebanon Valley's basketball program's he's in the Hall of Fame, and he's one of 5 ever to have his jersey retired by the program. So he knows basketball. He knows the sport pretty well. He's spent so much time with Rhoades. He spent 3 years with him at Randolph-Macon. He was a Rice assistant coach for several years, and he's now at VCU. So he's kind of just traveling with Rhoades for the most part. And the fact that he's a Maryland native and Lebanon Valley grad kind of tells me that he's more than likely coming to Penn State as well. I don't know what role. I'm assuming most of this staff is going to come with him just because there's so many ties to the state and the Northeast in general.
Yeah, I would think that's probably a good bet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Odom wants to keep any of these guys, because with every coaching change, there's always some dudes that end up staying as a holdover, whether it be a demotion or a little shuffle of the coaching staff. Like, for example, like the other guy that's on his staff currently, Brent Scott, his first coaching gig was at Rice back in 2007. Then he's actually a Rice grad. He rejoined Rice with Rhoades back in 2016. So he's got a lot of he's got Big 12 experience at TCU. He's got SEC experience at LSU. So I have a hard time seeing him coming this far north. It's a totally different atmosphere. Like coaching in LSU, TCU, Rice, VCU is even pretty different. Now go even further than the state of Pennsylvania, and it's like you're in a whole new world, pretty much.
Yeah, so I 100% agree.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll see him on staff or not. They do have an interesting executive director of basketball ops who actually I'm kind of familiar with from his Rutgers days, and Jimmy Martelli. The name's familiar because obviously he's the son of Phil Martelli, St. Joe's legend, longtime Division I coach. He was a really good recruiter at Rutgers. I could speak from just past experiences. He helped them land Miles Mack, who was one of their top players of all time in program history.
Yep.
He's got tons of ties to the region, especially Philadelphia, because of where his dad was. His dad's now the associate head coach at Michigan, so that would only help things. And he did have some issues with Rutgers, where he was part of the Mike Rice staff that was verbally and physically abusing players, but that was back in 2013. Yep. So, I mean, we're kind of past that. He also wasn't on video throwing a basketball at a kid, whereas Mike Rice was.
That certainly helps the defense for him.
Yeah. And honestly, like he's got some connections to the Northeast. His daughter's the all-time scoring leader in Towson field hockey. Yep. Like I said, his dad is a Pennsylvania legend.
Current assistant at Michigan.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of ties there. I would be almost shocked if he was not on this staff just because of the ties alone.
Yeah. As long as Penn State is okay with that now 10-year-old baggage, mm-hmm. I would expect him to be okay. Or expect him to be on staff.
Like I said, it sounds like most of that was Mike Rice. It doesn't seem like he's part of the staff, so obviously you just got to clean house when something like that happens.
Exactly.
But he's another name to keep an eye on. Like I mentioned, some of the staff at Penn State currently, like Mike Farrelly could be a guy. Adam Fisher. I don't know if I see a Key Collins staying personally. I wouldn't be shocked if like one or two of those guys also joined Shrewsbury, like you mentioned before, as
Sure.
a potential move for them. It's going to be interesting. I really don't
Yeah,
know where
and
else they go with this.
yeah, it is going to be interesting because college football I feel like is always a little bit easier to nail down uh,
Hmm.
assistant coaches and who makes sense, who fits where and where. And maybe that's just because college football, there's more people going that deep into coverage of it, that information's freely out there. College basketball is a whole different world, and maybe it's also because there's 130 FBS football programs, but there's over 300 college basketball programs here. Uh,
Hmm.
so we can almost say any assistant coach out there that has any ties to Pennsylvania, the Northeast in general, or the Mid Atlantic is a candidate potentially to be on Rhoades' staff. Um, I mean, you could look at school. You could look at places like out of Villanova. Do they want to have any from that coaching staff? But it's tough because that staff obviously has seen quite a bit of changeover since Kyle Neptune came aboard.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it all goes.
Yeah. One name, and I'm just going to throw this out here as just an idea. So hear me out. There's this guy that Pat Kraft hired at Temple as the head coach. His name's Aaron McKee,
Okay.
former Temple head coach. He
Temple
hired
legend.
him. Now he's special advisor. I forget what he is now. Special advisor for athletics at Temple. So he's not technically fired by the program, but he's still within the program. I'm sure he would love to get right back into it in coaching. It would make a lot of sense. There's connections to Kraft, Philly PA guy, Temple legend, first round pick, 76er at one point for 7-8 years, something like that.
Yeah, he was around for a while. He was a really good role player for the Sixers.
Yeah, six man of the year in 2001. So I mean, the NBA stuff alone kind of tells you that this could be a guy, and he's an A10 player too. So back to the A10. We'll talk more
Yeah,
about that. Like,
and I know he didn't do great at Temple, but I've heard a lot of reports that Temple job anymore is just it's a very bad job, and it's going to be really tough to win at anytime soon. So
yeah,
it's not entirely his fault either that didn't work out. It's not like he did terrible. He was 17-12, 16-6 the last two seasons, but it's going to take a lot to get that program back to where it once was.
yeah. I mean, he went from 5'11", like you said, to 17-12 to 16-6. It's really not that bad for Temple.
No.
They're in a weird state too because the American Athletic Conference is. It's odd. They're losing half their guys. They're also adding half of Conference USA, so they basically are Conference USA.
Yeah.
This is like a side note. I just think if you're Temple, you go Big East and pull a UConn.
Yeah, if they're welcomed, yeah, absolutely. And then just recruiting at Temple right now is really really tough. It's hard to sell to parents right now, considering the state of Philadelphia at times.
Yeah, and fun fact, Aaron McKee was once called the most influential teammate by legend Allen Iverson. So you get Allen Iverson to come to practice. Holy shit.
It would also get you really strong recruiting ties into Philadelphia, but it remains to be foreseen. I don't know if he's going to want to get back into coaching this fast after stepping down, but it would be an intriguing name to say the least. I mean, there's a couple guys out there who, if you want to get really fun with another Philadelphia basketball legend who has no coaching experience, but his son is in the transfer portal right now, Jameer Nelson would be a fun one.
That would be interesting, actually. I didn't even think about that.
That's another thing. That's a great thing about assistant coaching searches. You can go so many different ways. There are coaches who are going out there willing to hire guys who don't have much coaching experience, but when somebody like Jameer Nelson, I think you'll be okay with it. But that's also a name that potentially we could look for in the transfer portal for Penn State. Now that Mike Rhoades has taken over, is Jameer Nelson's son, who I think is just Jameer Nelson Jr.
Yep, that is correct. He is hearing from quite a bit of people.
He's
Interestingly
damn
enough,
good.
Jameer Nelson is a assistant GM of the Delaware Bluecoats.
Okay.
I don't know how much that role pays or what it even close to what it would pay, but
It's probably a comfortable gig.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being bad. Especially being in the front office right away. That's kind of most coaches' kind of dream, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Uh,
definitely interesting to note
any
there.
other
That
names stick out to you from the VCU staff or off the top
not
of your head?
not really. I kind of went through all the guys: Byers, Blunt, Martelli, Fisher, Farrelly, maybe. It's so tough. Like I think you honestly just bring over your VCU staff, and if you can get Fisher, you get Fisher. That's without a question. Like
Yeah.
you do
And
that.
the other thing is we don't know what type of money he's working with this assistant pool
That's
right now,
yeah,
and that's going to dictate a lot of who is on this coaching staff.
yeah. No, I totally agree. I don't see anyone else per se. I'm like looking around at like a couple local schools too. I just don't think anyone really stands out to me. We'll see what happens. He's got to kind of do it quickly, but again, this is kind of like the coaching search. This is not something you want to do immediately just to do it. Like you want to get guys in place and guys you trust, and it seems like he's a big proponent of getting guys that he's worked with before, aka guys that he trusts more than anything.
Yeah,
All of his staff is for the most part, is from Randolph Macon from back in the early 2000s, I think it was,
yeah.
when he was the head coach there. So I mean, it's not crazy to bring those guys up because they're from the D3 level. Another one that I shouldn't say, but speaking of the D3 level, who's Rowan's head coach? Joe Crispin.
That would be a
Everyone likes
fun
to
turn
mention
of
him for
events.
the head coaching job. Like, so I mean, hey, assistant coaching job. Like, he wins down there too. Like he just had them pretty far in NCAA tournament. It's not the
Yeah,
craziest thing. It's clear he loves coaching. It's just he's at such a low
it
level.
wouldn't be the
Maybe
first.
I mean,
It wouldn't be the first time in college basketball or college football that a coach returns to a former program as an assistant coach either. Here's
yeah,
an interesting one. If you're Mike Rhoades, um, are you trying to retain Brian Snow on your staff as your director of recruiting?
that's intriguing because obviously Brian Snow's got tons of ties to recruiting from his
Yeah,
247 days. I think he was actually their director for or scout. I'm sorry,
yeah.
or 24. Yeah, he was both. Whatever, same thing. It doesn't matter. Rivals better. What do you call it? He was in charge of recruiting rankings for them, and he's been with the program since what 2000.
Uh,
As soon as Shrewsbury came over, right?
Yeah, he came with Shrewsbury, so I imagine that Shrewsbury is going to try to take him to South Bend with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, he has ties to every single major high school in the country,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, obviously did a great job as director of recruiting over his 2 years with Penn State because they had their two best recruiting classes ever.
Yeah.
But I mean, alongside Adam Fisher, I think these are two guys that if you're Mike Rhoades, you have to throw most of your money at trying to retain. Will it be successful? I don't know, but
Yeah.
definitely a guy who has a short track record of success, but he has those ties to everywhere, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's all we really got for the time being in terms of assistant
Assistant.
coaches. Is there anything else we wanted to touch on in terms of Rhodes?
I guess quickly, let's go over a little bit of his style of coaching here.
Oh yeah,
I don't have anything written down, mostly just going off the numbers I've collected. So what I can tell, because I'll admit I haven't watched a ton of VCU basketball over the last 6 years. I don't know about you. Um,
no,
what we're looking at is we're looking at a coach who likes, a middle of the pack pace. They average 71.4 possessions per game over his 6 years down there, which ranked 150th in the country. So right about the middle of the pack. But beyond that, we kind of talked about already. It's defensive first philosophy. Uh, this past season, they were top top 60 in field goal percentage allowed, field goals allowed,
mm-hmm.
attempts allowed, and field goals allowed. They kept opponents to a 46.4% shooting percentage inside the perimeter. Outside the perimeter, 31.9%. So they really defensive focused. they're not going to worry too much about rebounds, which is something we saw with Mike Shrewsbury. They're more worried about getting a good defensive position coming out of a fast break opportunity, or when an opposing team gets a rebound. Over his 6 years, the best they've ranked in total rebounds per game is 111th. Each of the last 3 seasons, they've ranked 270th or lower in the country at VCU. So rebounds obviously are not a concern at all. 3-pointers, don't expect Penn State to be a three-point shooting team under Rhoades unless there's a philosophy change there. At VCU, their 3-point attempts this year was just 17.4 per game, which ranked 334th in the country. I'm not sure off the top of my head how many college basketball programs there are in Division I, but I know it's pretty close to 340. So we're talking bottom of the barrel there. In 2021, 2022, it was 346th. So again, bottom of the barrel there. So they're not going to worry about 3-pointers at all. That being said, when they do take 3-pointers, they do take what appears to be quality shots, because their shooting percentage from beyond the arc each of the last 2 years has been either 150th in the country or higher, which 150th may not sound great in the grand scheme of things, but that tells me you're in the upper half of college basketball when it comes to a certain
Yeah,
stat.
so I was reading a little bit about his defense, just to kind of piggyback on what you said, and he credits havoc. Creating havoc is like is what he wants to do.
And that go ahead. I was going to say that makes 100% sense, because this past season, VCU averaged 8.9 steals per game, which was 16th in the country, 4.6 blocks per game, which was 32nd in the country.
Yeah, and I'm just reading a couple bullet points here. It says havoc brings team morale. The style of play creates live ball turnovers, clearly, obviously. They don't have to be perfect on offense every night to win. So basically, it's kind of just like defense first. If you can hold them under a certain amount of points, your offense doesn't have to score 60, 70. Well, right, you have probably to score 60, 70, 80 points. It also creates fun offense and motion offense, which is just everyone, not motion offense, and it just creates transition offense, and it's just going to be speed, it seems like, for the most part. Is it going to be pretty? Probably not. A lot of people are going to be like, what the hell are we watching? Like this. The other interesting thing too is he plays a lot of guys.
And as somebody who comes from School County, I'm not shocked this is his type of coaching style, because it is a very gritty, blue collar type of basketball that VCU plays, which fits very well to his northeastern roots, which is very much the type of basketball they play in that part of Pennsylvania. But
sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, and it's, again, proven to work. His first season at VCU, they allowed 74.8 points per game. Since then, they have not allowed more than 65.2 points per game, and they have allowed 62.9 points or less in 4 of his 6 seasons. 3 of his. God, I can't speak today. 4 of his 6 seasons.
Yeah. A couple other things I'm reading, and it kind of made me giggle for a sec. He goes, we want the inbounder to smell your breath every time. We want the ref to tell you to back up at least 5 times per game. And I kind of like that attitude. Like, I love that. And it just seems like he loves, defense first, obviously. And that makes total sense, especially in the Big Ten, which it seems like a lot of programs are doing recently.
Yeah. And you were talking about, I want to go back because you mentioned how he plays a lot of guys. Last season, he had 11 guys who played in 14 games or more. So he does absolutely play a lot of guys. And when was the last time you saw this? Per 100 possessions, VCU last year, out of all 14 guys who played, out of all 11 guys who played 14 or more games, they had 2 guys with under 10 games. Each player had a defensive rating of under 100. I've not seen that in quite a long time.
No, it's going to be interesting. It's really going to depend. I don't know I know we talked about before. Expectations for year one are going to be weird. Like, everyone wants to see this team back in the Big Ten tournament title game again, of course. Like, no shit. But it's just not realistic. There's 4 scholarship dudes. I think you have to try to. You can't push for them, but you have to try to get some of those guys from VCU to come with you, and then just recruit the shit out of the portal. Now, I don't know how much of an NIL fund you have, but you got to do something.
Absolutely. But if there's one, silver lining there for Penn State with the scholarship situation, is that it's been proven in today's college basketball that you can win quickly with the transfer portal.
Yes.
I mean, Penn State did recruit well
prime
the last
example.
2 years with Shrewsbury, but you look at the transfer portal and you look at who the leading scorers on the team were this past season. Jalen Pickett, transfer portal pickup. Andrew Funk, transfer portal pickup. Cameron Winter, transfer portal pickup. But then you also had guys like Seth Lundy, who has been at Penn State forever.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting. The nice part is they do have Keba Enji, who was a pretty big contributor for the team. He was the starting center, so that's nice. Like I said, if you can get Kerry Booth back, that would be huge. I don't know what the optimistic level is there because obviously Shrews is going to push for him at Notre Dame, I'm assuming. They have a ton of scholarships too. And then the other 3 guys, Kanye-Clary actually played solid minutes to me. And I think
we got some breaking news according to John Sauber of Central Daily Times. I missed this earlier. Jameel Brown has entered the transfer portal.
Okay. So immediate reaction to that.
Well, job just got a little bit tougher.
I didn't even mention him. I was going to mention him, but I didn't.
That leaves them down to 1 guard on the scholarship roster in Kanye-Clary.
I just hyped him up. He's a good player.
Yeah. So, what's your immediate reaction? Because that's now 3 guys to enter the transfer portal. 4.
Yeah, that's it's not pretty. Obviously, number 1. So now you're down to 3 scholarships if you don't count Braden Shrewsbury, which I'm sorry, we have to count him for now until we find out he requests his rescinding his LOI or whatever. So unfortunately, we do have to count him for the time being. Do I agree with it? No, but whatever. Down to 3 guys. Like I said, Keba Enji, significant contributor year 1. Kanye-Clary reminds me a lot of Nick Honor. I don't know if you know who that is. He's from Fordham. He played at Clemson this past year. He averages like big numbers. And he's just tiny and he's shifty. And these tiny guards piss off other Big Ten teams because the Big Ten teams can't keep up with them because they have these tall, lengthier guards. And that's why they lose in March. Like, that's why these small, shifty scoring guards are why the Big Ten sucks in March. That's why that's the reason Penn State was so good. Cam Winter is not big. He's small, but he can score. So who the hell cares what his size is? So I think Kanye-Clary, if you can hold on to him, he could be a legitimate guard for you guys or for Penn State. Keba Enji, really good big man, still developing, still learning. Obviously got bullied a little bit because the Big Ten is filled with fucking 7-footers and Hunter Dickinson and Zach Edey and Cliff Amori and et cetera, et cetera. There's just a lot of big, bulky dudes, but the more he's in the program and more in the weight room, I think he'll be fine. Now, you just got to hold on to these guys. Like, you can't give Mike Rhoades 0 scholarship players. Like, you can't afford that whatsoever. Unless he's bringing the entire VCU roster, then you can't afford that.
100% agree with you there. And Brown played in 14 games for Penn State this year, averaging just 4.5 minutes a game, and averaged 0.9 points per game. Obviously didn't have a huge impact, but Penn State had so many good guards this year that it was tough for him to find time on the court. But he was a big part of their plans this upcoming season.
I find it interesting he didn't play that much because he obviously he was one of the higher. I think he was the highest ranked player in the class, right? If I'm reading that correct.
Let me check right now.
If I recall correctly, but if not the highest, he was definitely top 150. I know that.
And a guy they flipped from Purdue too.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't go to Notre Dame, I wonder if he gives Purdue another look.
Yeah, that place is a mess right now.
He may have been the highest rated guy. You're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting that he didn't play more because he was the highest rated guy. Sometimes we don't get them all correct, but I'm telling you, Kanye-Clary is better overall, better player. I think that he's the guy. Got to keep him on board. I think he could be such a good player for them.
I 100% agree, and it looks like actually Keba just got past Brown at 147th to Brown's 148. So.
There you go. So
Second
if you can keep Keba, keep Clary, and go from there. Anything else you want to touch on with hoops before we shift to football a little bit?
Mike Rhoades has a lot ahead of him as Penn State's head basketball coach. It's going to require patience from, I think, the Penn State fan base here. But I think if you're Mike Rhoades, this is obviously a hire that and that you're going to want to know that you have some job security, because yes, you can turn it around fast with the transfer portal, but there's also a chance this is going to be an ugly year one, and it could be even a semi-ugly year two. But I think, like I said at the top of the program, this is a coaching hire that is going to be able to stabilize the program for Penn State and get them in a consistent place where they're competing to be in the NCAA tournament every 2 out of 4 years, 3 out of 4 years.
Yeah, that's about all you can ask for. Seems like he has a high floor, middling ceiling, I would say probably. I don't think there's a high ceiling there, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll just wait and see what happens and kind of go from there. But real quick shift to football recruiting. Obviously, spring ball's here. I don't know if you want to touch on that. Or you want to just go straight to recruiting?
I mean, spring ball, I guess, there's not really much to say. I'll be honest. These spring practices, yes, we get access to them, but we're not seeing anything overly, that gives us a great deal of information, idea. We're seeing basic drills. I think, honestly, the spring games we'll take most of that information out of. So we'll have to wait a little, 3 weeks, 2 weeks? 2.5
Something
weeks.
like that, yeah.
So not that much really coming out of spring ball. I will say Malik McClain, the Florida State wide receiver transfer, his size is impressive, though I do think he can still add some muscle and weight to his frame. He's a very skinny 6'4", but he was at the pro day, had some nice routes and catches from Sean Clifford passes as well. But not much really to touch there on.
Obviously the bigger news, let's go to recruiting real quick. Two big things that just stick out to me right away. We're going to go one by one with this just to break it up a little bit. Amari Gaines, 2025 commit, second commit for 2025 for Penn State, second New Jersey prospect to Penn State in 2025. Tell me a little bit about him and why this is huge for Penn State.
Yeah, so Gaines is a very intriguing player. 6'3", 175. So he has the size and length that Penn State really likes in their cornerbacks. A good athlete. I think his coverage skills have some things to work on there. But again, this is a 2025 kid. There's plenty of time for him to work on those. And even if he doesn't, I think he could develop into a nice safety for Penn State. So there's a versatility factor there as well. One of the, I wouldn't say more important, but one of the more notable aspects of it is his dad. Nasir Gaines is a very, very powerful man in the state of New Jersey when it comes to football, which made Amari is a very good player, but it made teams want Amari even more because of that potential impact of having that in with his father. But the player that Amari is a very, I think, good player, a good player with a very high ceiling. I think the floor is decently high as well. I just think there will be some things he has to work on to be successful at the next level, to be a cornerback. But at the same time, I think he can fit a safety role at the next level as well. I haven't really gotten to watch much of his tape just yet. I know you've watched him. Is there anything you want to add?
No, so he was playing for St. Peter's Prep, which is one of the top talent producing programs in the state of New Jersey. I think he's a really solid prospect. He's a little bit more of a developmental guy. Like, I don't think that's fair to say with some of these dudes. They're not going to be contributors
not
from day one.
Exactly. And
especially
that
when
bad player.
Yeah, no, and especially with the depth they have and everything, it makes a ton of sense. DB might be one of the deepest rooms. It just seems like you lost Joey Porter Jr. It was going to be a guaranteed, all right, I'm going to say guaranteed
first
round pick.
Yeah.
And
then
you're
you have
replacing with
another one.
Kalen King, who's
Yeah,
probably another first round pick at this rate. I thought he might have
yeah.
been better than Joey Porter last year, and that's only because teams.
Yep.
It's only because teams were targeting him because they were scared of Joey Porter Jr. and he
Yeah,
just
and
shut him down too.
the one thing that stands out to me about Gaines is again that size, at 6'3". He's going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to match up against almost any wide receiver that he faced. There's very few wide receivers out there that are to have a clear advantage over him. They would have to be about what 6'5.5", 6'6".
At least. And
Yeah,
like you
so
mentioned before, go on.
no, I was just going to say. So I like the size and how he matches up. He'll match up against most wide receivers.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, his dad, Nasir Gaines, was called the most powerful man in New Jersey football back in 2019 by the state newspaper NJ.com. He runs that Brick City Lions Pop Warner team. That team has sent kids to Georgia Tech, Michigan State, Rutgers, Penn State, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, Wisconsin, so many others. Amin Vanover is one that I could think of off the top of my head. In terms of Penn State guys, they're doing very well with two of his very close friends and former Pop Warner teammates in Kaj Sanders and Jalen McClain into the 2024 class, both of which have already scheduled official visits. They're doing well with Vabu Toure, who's one of the top, I think maybe actually the top safety in the state, maybe even the top player in the state, in my opinion, out of Irvington High School in New Jersey.
Down to Ohio State, Penn
is
State, really for him as well.
Yeah, this is huge for Penn State's recruiting efforts in the state of New Jersey. And I said it when Khalil Ahmad got hired.
Yep,
There's a reason they hired.
Shout out to Khalil Ahmad.
They hired him because they want to get back in Jersey, and that's just a start. Like he's definitely going to help a ton. But these guys were already kind of starting to look towards Penn State. But you get him on board.
Sure.
People don't understand. This man literally got people to travel up to Syracuse from New Jersey. You know how hard that is? That's not close. I know everyone sees Syracuse as New York, but it's not like at all.
It is far upstate New York. I've had the pleasure of driving through Syracuse many of times in my life. Not the funnest drive.
I'm sorry. But the fact that he quote unquote, I was told, got more New Jersey kids to visit Syracuse in the past 2 years as their director of high school relations than the total amount of New Jersey kids that visited Syracuse for the 7 years prior. That alone tells you that he knows, he has connections, he knows what he's doing. So now you got Gaines, you got possibly Sanders McClain, possibly Toure too, and they're not done. This 2025 class for Jersey is kind of stacked a little bit. Like
Jersey, and you know Jersey a little bit more than me, but I feel like the last few years Jersey was kind of going through a little bit of a lull in their level of recruits. I mean, in the early 2010s, they were pushing out big time prospects left and right, but the last few years have been a little quieter. It now seems like it's now picking up once again in New Jersey, and Penn State is getting in there at the right time. And now, two New Jersey kids are leading off the 2025 recruiting class. And like you said, I don't think they're done in New Jersey in 2024 or 2025.
Yeah. So just to put it in perspective, right now they have number 1 in our rankings for New Jersey in 2025, number 14 in Amari Gaines. They hosted number 2, John Forrester, running back. They've hosted number 6, DJ McClary, who might be my favorite kid in the class. He's a linebacker out of Schneider High School. It's a small high school in Jersey City. If he played anywhere else, I think he'd be like a bona fide 5-star. I think he's that talented. Sure. He's athletic as hell. He was just on campus this past weekend. Number 7, Cameron Miller, Winslow Township, plays for Bill Belton, Penn State, former Penn State alum. Renick Dorillis out of Union is number 8, was just on campus. I can keep going down the list of Jersey dudes. Number 16, number 13, Latsier Brooks.
Yeah.
These guys were all on campus. Number 20, Naheem Parrish was on campus this weekend.
And
this is crazy.
And you take a step back to 2024. I mean, you look at the top 7 guys. Yassine Willis, Jordan Thomas. Okay, Owen Waffle is committed to Notre Dame, so throw him out. Mm-hmm. But William Love, Jalen Hornsby, Torrey, Kaj Sanders,
Emmanuel Ross,
Jalen McClain. These are all, and then Emmanuel Ross. So I mean, out of the top, 13 guys, we've mentioned 10 already that have Penn State offers or have been on campus multiple times. Especially those top 4. I mean, William Love. I'm interested to see where Penn State has him. projected. I guess that's something I should probably reach out and see if I can find out soon. But because Love is a guy who I think can play safety, he can play linebacker, you can fit him in multiple spots. But Love is a guy that I think they can land. Torre is definitely a guy they can land. Jordan Thomas is a guy that we feel very good about Penn State's chances with.
Yeah.
New Jersey, and as New Jersey went through a little bit of that lull, Penn State's interest in New Jersey kind of went in a bit of a lull too. But they are really making it a priority these in 2024 and 2025, and that's a lot thanks to Clue.
Yeah, and that definitely helps. And we'll see. I was going to mention that too. It was interesting that they did take a little bit of a break from Jersey, but I don't think they landed one kid in the past 2 or 3 recruiting classes, not counting 2023, obviously. Yeah. But it seems like they're back.
It was also a bit of a byproduct of going for a more national recruiting approach, and having success in places like Florida and Texas.
Yeah, so if they get back in Jersey, maybe get a little more Philly flavor too, and it's sky's the limit.
Yeah, I guess we should switch our attention to Luke Reynolds.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even talk about Luke Reynolds. I completely forgot about him. 2024 tight end commit.
It's been a busy last few days.
Yeah, 2024 tight end commit out of New England area. Tell me a little bit more about him.
Yeah, so right now he's a quarterback, which this is the first time Penn State's actually done this. Tyler Warren, current tight end on the team, was a quarterback, was a quarterback his first 3 years of high school, and then made the switch to tight end for his senior year. Reynolds, it sounds like, will be doing the same thing. Another guy I haven't been able to watch much tape, and there's honestly not much tape of him playing tight end. But his athleticism is pretty good of what I've heard. He camped at Penn State this past summer, camped very well. And they brought him in 2 weeks ago on an official visit. Everything checked out measurables wise, and he got an offer. And then 1 week later, he's committed. So it's an intriguing an intriguing commitment. But I think it's a high ceiling commitment. I think I really like his athleticism. Good size, 6'4", already about 220 pounds, I think. But it will be a little bit of transition there from quarterback to tight end. But Tyler Warren, like I said, made that transition and was making plays for Penn State in year one of his career. So it's been done before, and Penn State's had success doing it. So why not try it again? And it's one of those positions too where Penn State, if it doesn't work out, Penn State's recruited tight end well enough that they'll be okay.
Yeah, no, 100%. I always find it interesting because it's clear as day they didn't have a quarterback. That's why you put your best athlete at quarterback and just let him run pretty much for the most part. Yep. He still has some pretty good vision. He doesn't get tackled easily. I can tell you that much at his size. And then
tough run.
Yeah, and they got Dante Reno coming in, who is a South Carolina commit, I believe.
Quarterback. So he's gonna have plenty. He's gonna have a good quarterback thrower, is way to say the least.
Yeah, so now he's finally going to get to play the position he's probably better suited for. So we'll see what happens there. There's a bunch of stuff. He'll be at our Rivals camp, I think, in May. I'm going to head up there actually soon too to see him. They have a bunch of college showcases up there, so I'll head up there. It's not too far. So we'll go check him out, see how good he really is.
I guess to wrap this up, since we are pushing the hour mark, just a couple other notables coming out of the last few days for Penn State. We'll start with the most important guy. Quentin Martin was on campus on Tuesday, or was it Monday? Mm-hmm. Monday was on campus Monday. That was a visit that I was told went very well for Penn State. They still feel very confident about their chances with him going forward. I think there's a good chance this comes down to Penn State, Pittsburgh, and Ohio State. I think maybe you may see another school thrown in there, maybe a Southern school thrown in there, but I think realistically it's one of those three. And I like Penn State's chances a lot right now. I'm not, in a future cast position, but I do like Penn State's chances to ultimately land Quentin Martin. Messiah Mickens was on campus over the weekend. That's a big one for 2026. He spoke pretty highly of that visit. So did 2025 running back Bo Jackson. Not that Bo Jackson, but Bo Jackson out of Ohio. He actually reached out to me without me even hitting up first after his visit to tell me how much he liked it, which I'm not sure about you, Richie. You've been doing longer than me, but that was one of the few times that's ever happened to me where a player reached out to me first to talk about a visit, and
Yeah, no, he
based off
seems
how
pretty
much he liked it.
excited. Yeah,
So
he seemed pretty
that stood out
excited
to
about
me.
everything. So
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. I mean, long way to go, obviously, but we'll see what happens there. I want to go back to Quentin Martin real quick. He
yeah,
does have an official visit he's scheduled for
he
Penn
does.
State. So I think it's June 9th, if I recall correctly. But that's his only official visit right now. That's something to watch. Could be an exciting
Yes,
June for Penn State.
and actually, we'll just go over the official visits we have confirmed so far.
Oh, Ricky
And
Martin, or not Ricky Martin, Jesus, Ricky Knight. Jeez,
Ricky
my head
Knight, and
is spinning.
what day was Ricky Knight again?
The June 2nd. It's going to be Ricky Knight the third and Xavier Gillum. Ricky Knight
Yep,
the third just scheduled it recently. Florida
yep.
DB, 4-star, Rivals top 250 kid. Someone to definitely keep an eye on because DBU at this point.
Yes. Okay. So these are the official visits I have confirmed on our list. Working on confirming more all the time, of course. But so far, defensive end Xavier Gillum for June 2nd. Tight end Caleb Odom for June 9th. Also on June 9th is safety Butore, running back Duke Watson, wide receiver Jameer Grimsley, and linebacker Jamonte Waller. And then safety Kosh Sanders for June 23rd as well. And of course, you already mentioned Quentin Martin.
Yep. So that's going to be, I'm telling you, it could be a real fun June as per usual, or even July, because it seems like a lot of these kids take these visits and then it's just like, all right, let's wait till the dead period. And, when Richie and Dylan are on vacation, we're going to commit.
Exactly. And also Kai Greer for June 16th, Jalen McClain for June 16th, and Emilio Agard for June 23rd. Agard also scheduled official visits to Clemson and Tennessee, and is working on one for Michigan as well. That's a tough recruitment right now. I'm not really sure how that one goes. I want to say it's Penn State or Clemson at this point, but it's a very tough one.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. It's like I said, exciting June/July. I guess that's really it. We touched on the hoops coach, hoops assistant coaches, everything hoops possible. Touched on all the football stuff, 2 commits, future possible commits, official visits. Anything else before we sign off?
I think the one thing I really want us to both quickly touch on, and it's because it's a question that keeps popping up, is what is Penn State going to do at quarterback in 2024? It's tough. I think Van Buren, Michael Van Buren. I always want to call him Martin Van Buren. Michael Van Buren. I think Penn State does a potential lead for him right now, or is top 2, top 3 for him. But I think Samaj Jones is not slowly, but is rising up the board a bit. He's impressed me more and more lately. I'm not sure if he's going to be at a Rivals camp. I know he showed up last year. He looked pretty solid last year. But he's somebody that I'm increasingly watching. I think as soon as he's a take for Penn State, I think there's a good chance he could be a Nittany Lion. The ultimate hard part here is, do they want to take 2 quarterbacks, which I do think they will. But both Van Buren and Samaj Jones are on the smaller side.
Yeah, so, I think. Yeah, you go on. Finish that.
And I think both can start at the Power 5 level. So do both want to go to the same school and compete? To potentially be that star in 2024, or that's started for the 2024 class.
That's the intriguing thing. Is I think they land Michael Van Buren. I think that ends, like I said before, the St. Francis stigma that they don't send kids to Penn State. I think this ends it finally. I think they land Van Buren. It's a question of who the second quarterback is. Yeah, because they're in the thick of it for Jaden Bradford at IMG. Yeah, and he's definitely an intriguing prospect. I just don't know if he wants to be the second quarterback of a class. I know once you win one, a lot of people are like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm not being the second fiddle dude. But in reality, you're going into a situation for the most part where you're probably QB3 to begin. So
We haven't heard much about this guy lately, but KJ Jackson out of Mississippi, another guy that's been very high on Penn State through his recruitment. I'll have to check in on KJ here shortly, but another guy that who's very high ceiling prospect that they're in the thick of it for.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be interesting. I think Samaj Jones is probably a good QB too. I think he needs a little bit more development time, and I think if you can land him in Van Buren, you have to be extremely happy if you're Penn State.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are also, saying like it's almost April. Why is there not a quarterback committed? And usually that is the case. Quarterbacks are usually some of the first to be committed. But you kind of look across the board of the country this year, it's kind of been slow going for the quarterbacks. So you look at our top pro style quarterbacks. Out of the top 5 guys, there's only 2 committed in Julian Sayin and CJ Carr. And if you look at the dual threat guys, I don't think it's much different. We only have 4 dual threat guys in the top 250, but there is 1 out of 4, still uncommitted. But going back to the pro style, there's a lot of those guys in the top 250, and most of them are still uncommitted. So it's been a slow moving cycle from that standpoint as well.
Yeah. So I think that's really just about everything. We literally touched on everything and anything. I'll ask this one more time before we sign off. Do you have anything else?
I do not think I do. I think that's everything I really
All right,
have.
well,
we got to save something for next episode, right?
Yeah, no, of course. So now here's my little spiel. Guys, if you haven't already, whatever podcast app you're listening in on, just give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. Helps us build the pod, helps us build the brand a little bit more, reach other Penn State fans. Share the link to a buddy. It doesn't matter if the guy doesn't even like Penn State. If he likes college football or college football recruiting, send him the link. Tell him to give us a listen. Check us out. Also hit the subscribe button on the YouTube account. It also helps us a lot. Plus we have all kinds of other stuff on there. We have interviews with coaches and players, et cetera, et cetera. We have all the good, juicy shorts that everyone loves now, aka the TikToks and this and that. We're on every single app. Follow us at pennstate.rivals.com or at Penn State Rivals on just any social media platform. And I guess that's really it. So, one more thing.
Not Penn State related, but us related.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Be on the lookout on Monday. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, slight change coming to the site. We'll see what happens. It's going to be
we're not going
nice,
but slight change.
No, yeah. So you guys can calm down with the panic. As always, Richie Schnyderite, Dylan Callaghan-Croley. Another episode of the Penn State Rivals podcast, or Penn State Rivals / Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.